Hello, everyone, and welcome to AXSChat. Today we have Antonio and myself, and Neil is on holiday with his wife, and we really thought it was probably better that he enjoyed Barcelona instead of joining us on AXSChat today. And we have a really interesting guest that Neil met and invited to the program. His name is Shelton Newsham. I should have make sure if I'm saying that incorrectly. We'll let Shelton explain that. But he is we call him a police officer in the United States. But Shelton, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us your title and tell us a little bit more about this really amazing story that we're going to talk about today.
Okay, thank you. Shelton Newsham, so we're close enough. I'm the Prevent and Protect lead at the Yorkshire and Humber Regional Cybercrime Unit. So what that really means is, in relation to protect, that's sort of threat mitigation for organisations and individuals, helping them keep safe online, educating CEOs, boards, implementing policies and procedures. And then the prevent aspect, which is what we're going to mainly focus on today. That's about finding those gifted kids, finding the kids that have got those special traits, those really ones that don't know what to do, they don't know the strengths that they've got and the power that they've got, and actually what future they can have. However we engage with them, whether that's through a referral or because they've been investigated something, because that sometimes happens, and we then give them a positive pathway, show them the positive lights in relation to cyber, and then we can, we help through education, through the teachers, and then help them get the confidence to apply for jobs within the sector.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. We don't hear, a lot of times we just hear the negative stories. We don't hear the positive stories. And so this is very exciting and very unique. So can you give us an example of, maybe a few stories of, without telling the names, of course, understanding the privacy, but maybe give us a few examples of people you've worked with?
Well, we had one investigation where actually the parent was very positive, but didn't really understand his son's skills and abilities. Now, this individual came to us via an investigation. It happens. An offence is alleged. So our pursue team, our investigation team would follow the evidence, found out who this child was, and straight away understood that it wasn't malicious. He was testing himself. Unfortunately, that took him over the boundaries of the Computer Misuse Act into a criminal offence. But really, does that warrant going through the court prosecution system, or actually is education and support the way forward? We all work together, so we're not in separate units. We're in one large unit in the cybercrime unit, so we're always talking to each other. So we took this individual on. We visit the house. We go through what his thought processes are, how he was trying to test himself, and then giving that support and education. We also give some support for the parents, especially the father. And because he was quite gifted, we put him forward for a northern. It's an initiative where we put people through where they're tested. They're given talks from the National Crime Agency, and it's like a panel and a workshop, and the parents go along and they're given inspiring stories from technology, how their skills can be used for good, consequences, of course, of carrying on and down that line. And he really understood. He really got to. Because we make sure that the people who are doing the talking understand that certain people who've got autism, they're not going to, they react in a certain way to certain questions. So you've got to make sure that you make sure that the lights are dim and things. So it's, there's more interaction. And as a result of that, his father wrote a letter and said he's a totally different person. He's got some more confidence. His social skills have grown. Wow. He hasn't committed any further offences, and he is looking at going around technical route when he's at school, which is what we want. We want people to be in this industry. There's not, there's going to be a deficit,
Right.
and
Right.
the facts of the matter are that some neurodiverse individuals have got the traits and the qualities to do those jobs. They just lack the confidence and sometimes the understanding of others to give them the opportunity. So yeah.
Yeah, that is such a powerful story, and cybercrime is such a big thing right now. And
Mm,
and a lot of times we just hear the negative stories. And
mm,
there was a story in Virginia of a young woman who, 16-year-old, that was posting inappropriate pictures of her body parts
mhm,
online,
mm,
and the parents didn't know, and they didn't know until the police officer showed up on the doorstep
mm,
and told them that, not only was this girl in trouble, but the parents were in trouble since she was underage, and it was just such a sad story, because we did not use this as an educational opportunity, not only for the family and the individual, but everybody else as well. And so it, it, and you see this so much. And I have a daughter that's 31 years old with Down syndrome, and she is so good on social media that sometimes she hasn't done it as much recently, and you can't watch them every second of the day,
no,
but
no,
she'll post inappropriate pictures and I'll
mm,
hear about it. She posted, it was an innocent picture and law wouldn't have gotten involved with this, but she ate a strawberry and the strawberry juice was running down her face, and she posted she was a vampire queen. And so my sister's like, she shouldn't be posting that. But this is such a big conversation, and I know that I am so grateful that you're looking at this as an opportunity to improve people's lives. And so that is, we want this story to be heard, because we demonize our law enforcement so often. I know we really do that a lot here in the United States. I can't speak as much for you in the UK, but it's a real problem here in the United States. And so to see a program like this where you're going in and you're seeking to understand, but even more than that's really, it sort of brings emotion into me, certainly. It's a really beautiful story. And how do you deal with it? I'm going to ask you this one last question, and then I'm going to turn it over to Antonio, because I know he'll have great questions. But because it is so big and it's moving so fast, and what we're doing and how we're pulling in, and I read a terrible story yesterday about a boy that was 10 years old with a colostomy bag that was being bullied in school, and he committed suicide. So the cyberbullying and all of that comes into this. So how do you even begin to get your head around this, Shelton?
if we're honest, a lot of things with the bullying, posting of pictures, it's just moved into a digital arena.
Okay.
And a lot of the times, like the girl who's posted the pictures, we're used to, all that bully that used to say one thing. Now they write something that it never disappears offline. It's always there. Once you've said a comment, you cannot take it back. Um, what we do here in the UK, certainly in giving the example of the first example with the girl, that's an educational process. So we wouldn't be looking at prosecuting. We would look and um, we would go around. We would talk to the individual involved and the parents together to educate about indecent images across social media, but also the consequences for her, because
Right.
again, it never disappears. And children might send a picture to a boyfriend at the time because it's the love of their life, and they don't have that understanding that actually that their thought process may change and that person may not be their boyfriend or girlfriend for the rest of their life, and they now have access to images. So it's got to be an educational process. It's got to empower kids to learn and understand what social media is, and for the positives and the negatives, as well as parents. Parents need
Right.
to
And
understand.
right. And I'm going to bring up one
Yeah.
more thing that made this even more difficult, and I'm going to turn the mic over to Antonio. But also, I forgot this point, and this point chilled me as a parent, because we're always telling our kids, I was always told as a kid, Don't get into cars with strangers. They're going to stop and offer you candy, all that, right? Well, to make this even worse, what happened was she was being paid by pornography site, and they were almost luring her to do this, and they were paying her a lot of money for this. So you had that really scary aspect also,
Yeah.
which, our children are so vulnerable, and sometimes our children with disabilities like my daughter are even more vulnerable. So I forgot that really creepy, important part, in that there are predators that are after us. I don't want to be paranoid, but it's true. And so I want you to comment on that, and Antonio wants to go next. Sorry, Antonio, for going on so long.
Yeah. Yeah, just quickly on that. You will always get somebody who will try to take advantage of the vulnerable, whether that's physically, offline or online. And again, education for parents. We spend a lot of time, and we've got packs for educational packs for parents that we give them. That again, it's about giving them the strength and their courage and confidence to be able to discuss it with their children and what the threats are. But to be able to do that, they've got to understand it as well.
Shelton, in what age group are you focusing more in relation to those kids?
The main age groups that we look at now are between 11 and 17 years old. There are different, for the cyber prevent is between those age groups, because that's when they really start discovering their skills and kind of get that thought process on whether they want to push themselves a little bit further. We do have younger children that might knock their friends offline on a computer game and DDoS their friend or something, but a lot of the time that's an accidental thing, or it's just a purely learning thing. But to be impactful, to educate, and also to make sure they've got the pathways to picking their options for exams and further education, the 11 to 17 age group is where we focus our attention at the moment.
So when you look back to the information that you have from those kids about their skills, are you able to find a kind of a pattern in relation to their home environment? Are their parents come from a technical background, or the kids have developed the skills on their own with their peers? What are the things that you're able to find that allows you also to, when you have a new case, to go more, to be more focused and identify things in a more effective way?
So for how children develop is a number of, you have peer-to-peer development, the latest games and how they're going to get a cheat or to get the grades up, and that happens quite a lot. A lot of children educate themselves. They hear stories at school. They learn that people a couple of years older are doing this on this certain game, are doing that, have learned how to code this or write some script, and they challenge themselves. We do have a couple that have technical parents and they're brought up in that environment. But I also know quite a few that live in deprived areas where the parents have said, don't go outside, it's too dangerous. Come inside, they've got to come here. And they're inside and they're developing their own skills. The negative side of that is that the parents don't know the vulnerabilities of being online all the time. And again, that's where education comes in. But the thought processes of the child is they're in a safe environment, they're going to task themselves. So it's a combination, really. There's no real standout. Certainly anybody that's neurodiverse is self-development. It's really challenging themselves, and they're, and that's where they develop their skills from.
No, because teachers also have an important role in terms of I'm sure I look back to the school where my daughter is, and you end up in a scenario where people have and teachers have all sets of skills. Some teachers are more interested in technology, others they would prefer that school was like it was in the 80s and in the 70s. They are really scared of computers themselves.
Yeah.
Are you doing any work within schools in order to educate teachers, make them aware of this? And because a few years ago when I was a kid, I used to have people going to my school explain me, how to eat well, how to brush my teeth, all those things. And today we need to that is still important and always will be, but things have changed, and this type of culture and knowledge needs to be built in from an early stage. Or are you doing any work in that specific area?
Yeah. So to put it in some context, on Tuesday and Wednesday this week, two of my officers were with two sets of 600 children, going through skills, running workshops. We gave out, whilst we have parent education packs, we have teachers education packs and knowledge packs to give them the confidence. Because depending, and you're exactly right, Antonio, in relation to the backgrounds of some teachers, not all teachers pick to go into technical and study a technical subject. Sometimes they're asked to cover that position. And a lot of the time, just going from a curriculum and academic notes that are generic, when you're trying to educate on computer misuse acts, positive, and things like that, they don't have the credibility in the classroom because some children know more. And I think it's our job as well to help those teachers and give them context, to give them, more resources that enable them, exactly like you say, to understand and learn. And also, that child that's not engaging at the back of the class, that might not because they're being rude and they're ignoring what they say. They may be neurodiverse, or that teacher might be speaking at a level that's too low, and intelligence-wise, they're just not engaged. So they need to have that understanding as well, that sometimes it's not their fault if a child doesn't engage. And I think by giving that information, giving them that context, it gives them the confidence.
This is so important. This is so important because there's, I think back to, once again, we can't help but go back to our own childhood and what we had to worry about then and how we learned from our peers. I remember being in elementary school and somebody asking me if I was a virgin, and I didn't know what it meant, but I did know enough at that time that the girl that was asking me, I understood she was a little bit more sophisticated about certain subjects that my mother would not want me to be sophisticated about at the time. And I could tell by the way she was asking it that which answer I should give, because I didn't know what she was talking about. But and I remember it was scandalous. This is how old I am. It was scandalous. The boys were taking my name, Debra, which is spelled Debra, and saying Debra, and it was scandalous. Now it's like, that sounds ridiculous now based on what you're having to deal with. And so I think this program is so important, and I applaud you for doing it. I would also wonder, are you also teaching other law enforcement agencies outside because I would actually like you to come over here to the United States, please. And I mean, and I would like to have you on my other show, which is a lot of U.S. audience, because instead, one thing I think we've also forgotten about our police officers and our law enforcement is that they're here to help society be better. They're not just here as punishing you. And it's gotten really weird, the energy between the police officers and the citizens in some countries like the U.S. And so it seems like there's an opportunity for you to also educate other law enforcement officials.
So, I mean, with the Prevent program, it is a national program. Some of us are doing a lot of different ways to try and drive it forward. And I'll mention later a competition that we run. But there are a lot. So there is another 12 of me around the UK with the teams doing the same work in different ways. So that law enforcement in the UK really does understand the Prevent initiative. It understands education. And actually, putting it, and just giving a little bit more context, before I joined the unit, which was like 19 months ago, I used to run some teams, and you used to get reports of an image being sent to another child, boyfriend, girlfriend's indecent image being sent, and an officer would go. And even at that level, the officer on the street going, they know that actually it probably happened in the past in a different way. It's You can argue if it's age appropriate, but it's not malicious. It's understandable that it's happened. It is not in the public interest, and at that level on sending images and things like that, it would be a conversation with the parents on both sides, and the reference of that the crime that had taken place would get recorded and then just written off as it's not in the public interest. It's an educational process. So I have to say that a lot of the law enforcement here are really doing and understanding that aspect. What we are trying to push additionally is understanding the neurodiverse issues. So if you go to a violent child or a domestic situation where there is a child there, sometimes the parents haven't had a diagnosis of their children, and sometimes the parents haven't been diagnosed themselves. And if you put physical contact onto some individuals, their reaction, a bit like we were talking about earlier, is to lash out, is to have a violent reaction, which then causes a violent reaction by the officer. And the next minute, we're wrestling and we're fighting with somebody who only reacted because they were uncomfortable, not because they were being malicious against the officer. So we're looking at developing some guides for officers for autism, for when they first go to an incident, and also for when they're speaking to them and interviewing them. So in that respect, yes, we're trying to add some additional benefits and learning for officers.
And I'm just going to tell quickly the story that we were referring to, because we were talking about it off air, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Antonio. But in the United States, we've had a lot of, everybody has problems with this. And there was a man with Down syndrome that was, he was a full-grown man, and he was a very big man. And he was watching a movie with his sister or his caregiver, and the caregiver or the person was with them left at the theater a little bit earlier, maybe went to the restroom or something, and the man wanted to watch the movie again, and he started getting belligerent, and the theater staff called the police. Things got very quickly out of control, and a police officer, as they were trying to hold him down, his neck was broken, or he was strangled, and he died. And he only wanted to watch the movie again. And the police officers didn't come in there to kill this man. Of course they didn't, but we've heard stories like this, and they're chilling. And they're chilling for everybody involved. Let's make that clear. But that's why the work you're doing with the neurodiversity, because this is such a huge topic for all of us. But then you add the neurodiversity into it, and it takes on all these other dynamics. And Shelton, I don't know if you want to comment on that. And then Antonio, I know you have another question.
Yeah, I think, again, certainly the law enforcement here, they do a lot of work. There's a lot of training, but we need to start looking at neurodiversity for an investigation side, because a lot of the time, if it's a prolonged investigation, once you identify somebody who may have committed an offence, and you're going to interview and a care plan for if they're going to a custody or doing something like that, they need to know, because people need to know that, bright lights, persistent questioning, if somebody's not looking you in the face, it's not because they're hiding something, it's a trait that they've got, it's just, and I think that's the type of education that we're starting to bring in now via the cybercrime units. And there are quite a lot of partners out there, the Autism Society, and that give us the necessary tools to be able to put that into a police language, because a lot of things need to be put into a police language, to then again assist the officers, and that's the key part.
Antonio, you're on mute, sweetheart.
So I'm particularly interested on the learning path. So when you identify those kids, is there a learning path for them? How you are able to identify their potential? What's the follow-up?
So what we would originally do, like some of the children, it could be as basic as they just like coding, they just like gaming. So we know every coding um, um, club in our region. And our region is vast, and we know every coding club. So we will straight away give them something that they've been looking for. We will signpost them to that. Then from there, every usually 3 months, we speak to their parents again. We will revisit. We will see how that has done and whether they've got, if they're content with their learning and that, because they may then want to go into game development. They may want to do something else. So as we go, and if they're the 11 to 14-year-old range in the UK, we will keep that contact up and help them with options, because they may not need to go down a technical route in their options for their further education and things, depending what they want to do. And also, a key thing is that not all security developers need university degrees. You are skilled by ability. And so we make sure they understand that, because there are individuals that are that gifted, but they're not conducive to high school education and college, and will always be disruptive, for want of a better phrase, for teachers and other students. So we also give them an understanding, and their parents key an understanding, that actually, as they go older, it might be worth looking at more of a vocational or an internship as they go up, or because actually learning on the job and doing maybe one day in class, because you've got to stay into education till you're 18 in the UK, would be more conducive to them learning their skills. So it's a person by person decision on how we interact and how we then give them the pathway, because many will say it's go to these courses, then go to these universities look at these courses, and actually, we've got some around here. Sheffield, for once, is one of them, and Leeds Beckett. They've got really good science programs, but they've also got development programs within that, so they can do a multitude of things. And again, a lot of it is picking the right subjects that's right for that individual, not because the subject fits a part of the cybersecurity industry, if that makes sense. It's got to be an individual. Otherwise, we're not helping individuals. We're putting people in a bracket and saying you must do this to achieve that, and that won't work.
So we had several discussions on this topic of talent management, because I do other work in other communities that relate with talent, with recruitment. And where we have regular conversations on Twitter, chats on cybersecurity, on talent, and it's often a topic that almost everyone agrees is in this area of cybersecurity. The top individuals, they don't come from university background. Okay, it's actually extremely rare to find a top individual who comes from that area, and sometimes they come from university background, but they don't come from that technical area. They come from other areas.
Yes.
But they develop that by themselves.
Yes.
So, considering the skills that they acquire, it's important that when they end up in any kind of formal education, vocational or any other, that the organizations that are going to receive them can also understand them and how they work and the best way for them to learn. You mentioned the coding schools, but are there other organizations that you often recommend them to go because they actually are in the same mindset, in the same approach that you are following?
Yeah, there's, depending on, so we work with Cybersecurity Challenge UK, we work with other organisations and do local events. So we would do local road shows, local events like that, because if we're honest, there aren't, people putting a club on costs money, and a coding club fits a certain specific area of people, skill set and interest. But as you've just said, Antonio, there are so many skill sets. There are non-technical skill sets that may develop in the future. You don't need, and that's another thing. They don't need to be technical to be in information security and cybersecurity. So yeah, and we that's why we deal with individuals as they are, and then we can get speakers in who are experts in neurodiversity, and we will again give them the confidence to understand why they're struggling to listen to the teacher and things like that. We give the support for obviously for the parents. So yeah, we will tailor and we will talk to the different local charities, whether it's the Autism Society, because this is all about the individual. It's for too long we have tried to fit the masses into a small two parallel lines and make sure everybody fits. With the Prevent program and with what we're doing is this is an individual based program to give them the strengths, because just because somebody has committed a cybercrime, a computer misuse act on one occasion, that doesn't mean they're a technical person. It means that they're going to have that trait and they are neurodiverse, but that doesn't mean that they are going to be a cybersecurity expert of the future. They may have committed a cybercrime. It's our job to go in to talk to them, explain what's right or wrong, and actually their interests may be elsewhere. But that doesn't stop us supporting them and interacting with them and saying, well, actually, if you want to do that and you're more, you're analytical and you want to do just mathematics or things like that, or you want to do, you're more process driven, well, these are the types of education and jobs you could do. We don't, because we're the cybercrime unit, doesn't mean that we fit everybody into cybercrime and push them in that general direction.
No, for kids, when you are crossing the street, the sign is green or red.
Yeah.
When you are exploring the web, when you are doing so, you don't really have a sign saying, "Oh, you are going to the wrong zone. You need to stop here." Mm-hmm. So I think the work that you are doing is actually reveals a lot of sense and a lot of empathy mixed with this, educating people for the importance of and the parents as well. But have you considered, especially the ones who are in an older age, as a pool of talent to recruit, or if you have been approached by organizations about also recruiting and finding how can they tap into that talent and recruit them into the industry?
So there are a lot of organisations that say they are and things like that, and I think a lot of the organisations understand that neurodiversity is not a negative; it's a positive. It's the traits are really good. For us, our unit started the first intern program in regional cybercrime units. There's other units that are now going to start taking that on. Our interview process was different. We, not HR, vetted our applications because applications aren't conducive to some people. They don't like them, and everything's literal. And we did our interviews latter end of last year for the next program, which will start in August, and we had one-line answers for the entire application form. One line. And that person, well, there were a couple. They got interviews. If it was a HR officer or something just looking at an intern, well, they haven't answered the question. Well, that doesn't make any sense. They would have, I'm sure you call it a paper sift as well, but they would have got sifted out, and that wouldn't have got to the final thing. We vetted our own, and there's got to be a lot of responsibility on organisations to either make sure their HR understand it's an individual for a role and actually a generic form won't work, or the people that are running the area of business that person is going to go into that they do the SIFs on all those application forms, because we were right to let them application forms through. Because when we went to interview, our interviews again are structured totally different, so that it empowers everybody to take an interest, and it looks at different skills, but you can then see and you know straight away. And I will just say that we were right on the people that excelled in our intern recruitment, that those two where there were just one line that may have been discarded by others, we were right because we knew what we were looking for. But that is exactly the same in organisations. It needs to be the people that know what they're looking for that do the vetting of the forms and make those reasonable adjustments.
That's so powerful what you're doing, because we know there's been studies done all over the world, but studies here in the United States where we're finding respectability did a study where we found that 65% of people incarcerated in the United States have disabilities, have neurodiversity issues. And, we might even argue it's higher than that, but that, 65% isn't good. And we do a lot of incarceration of citizens in the United States. We like to think we're number one, and we are number one there, and we're not really thrilled with being number one. So I like programs like yours that is there to educate and really help individuals, as you're saying, be successful. But how you're tying it into employment and internships, I mean, that is just, I want to cheer for you. I want to give you a hug, Shelton. That is so powerful how you're tying, because I think of one of the most notorious hackers, most successful notorious hackers, had autism. So obviously this individual is brilliant with a lot of this new stuff that we don't even understand as society. So I just love the empowering way that you're doing this, and I understand it. It is sticking your finger in the dike. This is so huge, and I imagine, and I don't know this for sure, Shelton, but a crime is committed in your area, but it might be this crime might affect everybody else because it's the internet, so it's the world. So jurisdiction must get confusing. I guess you do it based on where people are, but go ahead.
Yeah, we do. But communication is better. We have liaisons for US law enforcement, international law enforcement. So communication, certainly in relation to cybercrime, is very good. It's very good.
Yeah. Well, we are so impressed with you, and I know we're out of time, and we definitely want to have you come back on AXSChat again, because this is, we applaud you. We applaud you, Shelton, and all of the teams and all of the lives that you're changing and improving. And we know this in the United States. If you can't help an individual find who they are and maybe really embrace their life, they might, we have all this horrible violence in the United States in our schools right now. And all of these things tied together, they tie together, and we must understand this as society. So we really applaud what you're doing. And we want to thank Barclays, who supports AXSChat, and My Clear Text, which we love what they do. Elaine and Orla, they're just amazing. And we really applaud you, Shelton, and we want to help you. So we're always here. I know that Antonio, like he mentioned, he's involved in other chats and other conversations, and so don't be surprised that he's going to come knock on your door and say, Shelton, come on.
No, but I couldn't let Shelton go without just asking just a small question, because especially in the social channels, there are many other organizations that are involved, social networks are involved. Do you have any engagement with them to see how they can at least sometimes be more alert to the way how they design their platforms to avoid sins? Because sometimes just by the way how you design a platform, the way how the platform is enabled, or even the terms and conditions can create a lot of issues here. So are you doing any engagement with social networks also to create them awareness about the responsibility that they have?
We've tried. It's been dealt with. They're trying at a national level. If we're honest about it, we are pushing. It's about educating mass corporate bodies, and the National Crime Agency are working to try and educate on these areas, and it has to be a national government steer to make that. We can push, we can make things, and make them aware of things, but they will only listen when there is a national steer and national push towards it. But every organised crime unit, every regional cybercrime unit know they're trying to, and how we communicate online is in the best way possible to get our message across to all avenues of the community. And I think you're 100% right that social network sites and platforms, they need to understand as well, but it's got to come from the top.
Well said, well said. Shelton, thank you for being
No
on the
problem.
program and for your work. And gosh, we applaud what you're doing. And we really want to get out, make sure that people know what you're doing so that they can follow your lead and learn from you, and we can make society a better place for everyone. So thank you once again to you. Thank you, Antonio and Neil, and all of our lovely sponsors. And we will have fun on Tuesday talking about this on Twitter. Thank you,
That's correct.
Shelton.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.